Hi, Lena. Thank you for this wonderful, lovely, and adorable movie with this squirrel.
Every superhero comes to us with a purpose. Did you type this? He's a superhero.
I want to ask you first about the cast because we have Alison Hannigan, we have Birch Barnes, Matilda Lawyer, Danny Pudi, and also this trained squirrel sometimes.
Yeah, it was. They were a fantastic cast. It was really difficult to find them. We had to search for over 1,000 girls for Flora, and I think Matilda is going to win an Oscar someday. She is so good, and she's funny, and she's smarter than a lot of adults I know. And Ben and Danny were so good with the improv, and Allison had actually a really hard job because she had to figure out how to be. She was a villain, kind of, but you also have to root for her. So she figured out a way to be funny and villainous and vulnerable at the same time, which I think only she can do.
I want to ask you about this lovely story with an adorable squirrel, a vacuum cleaner, and superpowers. Where did all that come from?
It came from my mom, who passed away in 2009, but she had a vacuum cleaner that she loved. And she was worried about what would happen to the vacuum cleaner after she died. And I promised her I would take the vacuum cleaner. And I did, but I couldn't put it in the house because she had a cat and I'm allergic to cats. So I put it in the garage. And every time I saw the vacuum cleaner, when I pulled the car in, I would think, oh gosh, I miss my mom. And then the spring after she died, there was a squirrel who was on the front steps of my house who was dying. And I didn't know what to do to save this squirrel's life. But it all made me think about E.B. White, who wrote, Charlotte's Web. And there's a wonderful sentence from him about one day he was going to feed the pigs and he started to think about ways to save a pig's life. And I started to think about ways to save a squirrel's life. And I combined it with the vacuum cleaner. There you go.
I love it. I love it. This movie is filled with Easter eggs about many, many things. Of course, the superhero part is present there, and I loved it. But I want to ask you about the doorbell. The doorbell of the house. It's better if we don't spoil it. But when people see it, I want them to know, why did you have this stone, which is amazing. And when I heard it, I was like, yes, I need that.
George in the movie is a little bit of like, he's a comic nerd, so of course he's gonna have things that are from that world or from movie comic book world. And so we kept trying different variations of things. We had the Avengers theme before and we're like, no, that's not specific enough to him, something that he would put. And also they just got separated, so he might do something that just had a little bit more of a darker quality to it, and so that's how we ended up with that.
I have to ask you about the names.
Yeah.
Like Ulysses, where did it come from?
So it's a ridiculous notion to have a squirrel sucked up into a vacuum cleaner and turned into a superhero, right? I know that I'm not in the land of James Joyce and mythology, and so I think, how much fun would it be to have it be this really big, impressive name, Ulysses, that belongs to James Joyce and to classic mythology, and put it on the side of a vacuum cleaner and then attach it to a squirrel. So it was just kind of me amusing myself, I guess. And who would ever think we'd end up here,
Right. I love this chaotic donut scene. I don't know if you have a funny anecdote.
We did a lot of takes and there are a lot of donuts, and there was at some point the donuts were not hitting the people, so I was throwing the donuts and I'm like, no, there's not enough frosting, somebody get me frosting. And then I'd put extra frosting on the donuts, and you'd have to aim it really well so that you could just get it onto her face.
My last question is about a sentence, a dialogue that's in the movie. It's easier to draw a superhero than to be one. And that's a really powerful line. And it's also true. And it has this notion about fear also, and about our role in this world. Those are really big thinkings, and you translate them to children and to families. So I want to ask you about that.
Wow, that is a tough question. And all I can tell you is, and I think this is particularly relevant now, for me, the way to move through the world super heroically, which is incredibly difficult and a minute-to-minute challenge, is to be absolutely present with every person that you talk to and every creature that you meet. because there are marvels and gifts everywhere if we open up our eyes and pay attention to each other and to the world in front of us. And so that, I think, is the superheroic task given to all of us, is to pay attention, because paying attention is loving.
Thank you for this interview, Kate. Thank you for your characters and for this amazing story.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a delight to talk to you. Bye.
Thank you. You too. Nice to meet you. Bye.
Bye.
Ulysses.